Have you ever been listening to a piece of music, completely lost in the rhythm, when suddenly the melody shifts in a way you did not expect? Or perhaps you were standing in a quiet crowd, listening to a powerful voice ring out across the silence, and without any conscious thought, a sudden heavy shiver ran directly down your spine. The hairs on your arms stood up. A wave of static electricity seemed to wash over your shoulders and cascade down your back. For a brief, overwhelming second, the chaotic noise of the outside world completely disappeared, leaving you hyper-focused on a profound sense of awe. Before we dive deep into the fascinating biology of this exact sensation, take a moment to gently settle into your space. If you are still looking at your screen, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me about the last time you felt this sudden electric chill. Was it a specific song playing through your headphones, a breathtaking view at the top of a mountain, or a perfectly delivered line in a film? Leave a comment and share your trigger with our quiet community. Then turn your screen face down, close your eyes, and let us explore the hidden science behind that exact feeling of physical awe. This phenomenon is known scientifically as frisson. It is a French word that translates directly to a sudden aesthetic chill. It is one of the most mysterious, complex, and deeply beautiful physical reactions the human body is capable of producing. We often associate goosebumps with being physically cold or being suddenly frightened. We easily understand the biological need to shiver when the temperature in the room drops. But why does the human nervous system react in the exact same physical way to a beautiful piece of art, a profound cognitive realization, or a moment of incredible human courage? Tonight, we are going to completely unravel this mystery. We are going to journey deep into the architecture of your brain and explore how an ancient, deeply ingrained survival mechanism was beautifully rewired by human evolution. We will discover how your body learned to translate abstract emotional resonance into a heavy, physical wave of pleasure. As you lie here in the dark, allow your breathing to naturally slow down. Sink heavily into the comfort of your mattress. Release the lingering tension in your jaw and let your shoulders drop completely flat against the bed. The vestigial shiver. To truly understand why a beautiful piece of music or a breathtaking view can send a sudden electric wave down your spine, we have to travel incredibly far back in time. We have to look at the deep, evolutionary history of the human body. The physical sensation you experience during a moment of profound awe is an ancient mechanism. It is a biological echo from a time when the world was a much harsher, vastly more unpredictable, and infinitely colder place. If you look closely at the surface of your skin, you will see thousands of tiny hair follicles. Attached to the very base of every single one of these follicles is a microscopic, incredibly sensitive muscle called the erector pili. In our modern, comfortable lives, we rarely think about these tiny muscular structures, but for our earliest mammalian ancestors, these microscopic muscles were absolutely vital for physical survival. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, before the invention of woven clothing, heated homes, or artificial shelter, early hominids were entirely exposed to the brutal elements of the natural world. When the sun went down and the freezing winter winds began to blow, the body had to react instantly to prevent a dangerous drop in core temperature. The sympathetic nervous system would fire a rapid electrical signal across the surface of the skin. This signal commanded millions of erector pili muscles to violently contract all at the exact same time. When these tiny muscles contract, they pull the attached hair follicle completely upright. This creates a small elevated bump on the surface of the skin, which we commonly call a goosebump. By standing all the body hair straight up, this ancient biological reflex trapped a thick, insulating layer of warm air directly against the skin, protecting the body from the freezing environment. But temperature was not the only threat in the ancient world. This exact same reflex was also triggered by sudden, terrifying danger. If a predator snapped a branch in the dark, the fight or flight response would instantly activate. The sudden surge of adrenaline would cause those exact same erector pili muscles to contract, standing the hair on end in an attempt to make our ancestors appear physically larger and vastly more intimidating to whatever was hiding in the shadows. As the centuries passed and human beings evolved, our physical relationship with the world completely changed. We learned to build heavy fires, we constructed thick, insulated walls, and we wrapped ourselves in warm clothing. We slowly lost the thick layer of body hair that our ancestors relied upon. Because of this, the physical reflex of standing our hair on end lost its primary survival function. It could no longer trap enough air to keep us warm, and it certainly could not make us look large enough to frighten away a predator. In biology, physical traits that lose their original evolutionary purpose are called vestigial. But the human body is incredibly conservative. It rarely throws away complex neurological wiring once it has been built. The dense network of nerves connecting your brainstem to those millions of tiny muscles in your skin remained perfectly intact. What happened next is one of the most beautiful and poetic accidents of human evolution. As our brains grew larger and infinitely more complex, we developed the capacity for abstract thought, deep emotional resonance, and the appreciation of profound aesthetic beauty. The higher cognitive centers of the new human brain began to wire themselves directly into the older, primitive survival pathways of the limbic system. The biological circuitry that was originally designed to keep us alive in the freezing snow was quietly repurposed. The brain learned to take the overwhelming, uncontainable emotional energy generated by a beautiful piece of art, and it began to channel that excess energy straight down the ancient pathways of the sympathetic nervous system. It turned a survival mechanism into an instrument of profound emotional expression. So when you feel that sudden chill today, you are not reacting to the cold. You are feeling the physical architecture of your ancient ancestors vibrating in perfect harmony with the immense, breathtaking beauty of the modern world. The chemistry of the chill. We have explored the surface of the skin and the ancient muscles that create the physical sensation of the shiver. Now, we must travel deep into the internal architecture of the human mind to understand exactly what triggers this magnificent biological event. The physical wave that washes over your shoulders does not originate in the peripheral nervous system. It is born in the absolute center of your brain, driven by a heavy, sudden, and deeply comforting chemical flood. When you encounter something truly magnificent, whether it is a soaring vocal performance, a stunning painting, or a sudden realization of a universal truth, your brain must process that information incredibly quickly. The sensory data enters through your ears or your eyes and travels directly to the highly evolved prefrontal cortex. This is the area of your mind responsible for complex analysis, pattern recognition, and the deep, conscious understanding of beauty. When the prefrontal cortex determines that the sensory input is exceptionally beautiful, deeply meaningful, or overwhelmingly profound, it cannot contain that realization on its own. It instantly sends a powerful electrical signal down into the older, emotional center of the brain, known as the limbic system. Buried deep within this limbic system is a highly specialized cluster of neurons called the striatum. The striatum is the biological headquarters of the human reward system. It is responsible for assigning emotional value to our experiences, telling us what is good, what is vital, and what is profoundly meaningful. The moment that signal from the prefrontal cortex hits the striatum, a massive, highly orchestrated chemical event occurs. The brain violently releases a heavy, sudden surge of a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is frequently misunderstood simply as the chemical of basic pleasure. But in the context of Frisson, dopamine acts as a profoundly powerful molecule of ultimate biological validation. It is the chemical equivalent of your brain shouting that whatever you are experiencing in this exact moment is incredibly important, undeniably beautiful, and absolutely essential to your human experience. When this massive wave of dopamine floods the striatum, it creates a sudden spike of intense neurological energy. It is an emotional saturation so complete and so overwhelming that the brain simply cannot contain it purely as a cognitive thought. The energy has to go somewhere. It demands a physical release. This is the exact moment the aesthetic chill is born. The brain takes this massive, overwhelming chemical joy and converts it into a sudden, powerful electrical discharge. This electrical current shoots rapidly down the brainstem, travels at lightning speed down the thick column of your spinal cord, and branches violently outward into the thousands of peripheral nerves that spiderweb across your shoulders, your arms, and your back. The electrical current hits those ancient erector pili muscles we discussed earlier, commanding them to contract all at once. The physical shiver you feel is the literal, biological translation of an emotion that was simply too massive for your brain to hold. It is the excess energy of profound awe spilling over the edges of your mind and washing heavily across the physical landscape of your skin. There is an incredible, profound peace hidden within this violent chemical reaction. When the dopamine floods your system and forces the physical shiver, it clears away all the chaotic, anxious noise of the waking world. For that brief, electric second, you cannot worry about the future and you cannot regret the past. The immense chemical weight of the frisson anchors your consciousness entirely and absolutely in the present moment. As the shiver slowly passes and the dopamine gently begins to recede, it leaves behind a deeply quiet, highly relaxed neurological environment. The nervous system has successfully discharged its pent-up energy, leaving the body feeling pleasantly heavy, perfectly still, and beautifully grounded. As you lie in bed right now, you can appreciate the magnificent chemical capacity of your own mind, knowing that your brain is fundamentally wired to reward you for discovering beauty in the world around you. The anatomy of acoustic anticipation. Even though we have expanded our understanding of frisson to include many different human experiences, we must still acknowledge that sound is one of the most reliable and powerful triggers for this biological event. To understand why a specific piece of music or a beautifully arranged acoustic landscape can cause such a profound physical reaction, we have to look at how the human mind actually listens to the world. You might think of listening as a passive activity, simply receiving the invisible vibrations of the air as they wash over you. But inside the dark, quiet architecture of your skull, your brain is engaging in an incredibly active, highly complex, and constant mathematical calculation. The human brain is fundamentally an expectation machine. From the moment you are born, your neurological system is desperately searching for reliable patterns in your environment. It wants to understand the rules of the world so that it can accurately predict what is going to happen next. This constant prediction is how your brain keeps you safe, and it applies this exact same survival mechanism to the way you experience sound. When you begin to listen to a piece of music, the auditory cortex immediately goes to work. It breaks down the invisible sound waves into their most basic, fundamental components. It identifies the tempo, it calculates the underlying rhythm, and it analyzes the specific distance between the musical pitches. Within the first few seconds of a song, your brain has already built a highly complex, predictive model of the music. It has identified the pattern, and it has confidently guessed exactly where the melody is going to go next. When the music follows this predictable pattern, the brain feels a quiet, subtle sense of satisfaction. It is comforting to be right, and the steady, reliable rhythm creates a feeling of psychological safety. But a truly brilliant piece of music does not just give the brain exactly what it wants. A brilliant piece of music plays a delicate, masterful game of psychological tension and release. As the music progresses, the composer or the artist will begin to build acoustic anticipation. They might slowly strip away the heavy, grounding frequencies of the bass, leaving only the high, floating melodies. They might introduce a long, incredibly slow crescendo, gradually increasing the volume and the density of the arrangement, or they might simply sustain a single, unresolved chord for an uncomfortably long period of time. During this build-up, your brain knows that a resolution is coming. It understands the mathematical rules of the musical scale, and it desperately wants the chord to resolve back to its foundational root. But the music forces your brain to wait. This waiting creates a profound, building tension inside your nervous system. You are biologically holding your breath, suspended in a state of deep acoustic anticipation. The prediction engine in your mind is working at maximum capacity, entirely focused on the invisible architecture of the sound. And then, in a fraction of a second, the music finally delivers the release. But the true trigger for Frisson happens when the music does not just resolve exactly how you expected it to. The sudden, heavy chill washes over your skin when the resolution is far more beautiful, vastly more complex, or entirely different than the pattern your brain had originally predicted. Perhaps the melody suddenly jumps an entire octave, soaring high above the rest of the arrangement. Perhaps a massive, heavy bass line suddenly drops, completely filling the acoustic space with warm, vibrating pressure. Or perhaps the chord resolves into an entirely unexpected, beautifully melancholic minor key. In that exact moment, your brain's prediction engine is completely overwhelmed by the sheer, unexpected beauty of the acoustic shift. The tension you are holding is violently released all at once. The dopamine floods the striatum, the electrical signal fires down your spine, and the heavy, undeniable shiver washes across your skin. You are rewarded biologically for being wonderfully, beautifully surprised. This mechanism is why you can listen to a deeply moving piece of music and feel perfectly safe, completely anchored to the present moment and entirely surrendered to the heavy, rolling rhythm of the sound. The weight of the spoken word. While the complex mathematics of musical chords and sweeping melodies are incredibly powerful, they are not the only acoustic patterns that can trigger this profound biological reaction. Sometimes the most intense, overwhelming physical chill is not caused by a massive symphony or a heavy, vibrating bass line. Sometimes it is caused by the incredibly quiet, deliberate, and resonant power of the spoken human voice. The human voice is the oldest, most intricate, and most emotionally devastating instrument in the history of the world. Long before we learned to carve flutes from bone or stretch animal skins over hollow logs to create drums, we communicated our deepest fears, our greatest triumphs, and our most profound sorrows entirely through the subtle vibrations of our vocal cords. Because of this incredibly long evolutionary history, the human brain is beautifully and specifically tuned to the exact frequencies of human speech. We process the spoken word much differently than we process the sound of the wind or the crash of the ocean. When you hear another person speak, your brain is not just analyzing the acoustic data. It is instantly and automatically searching for emotional context. This is made possible by a remarkable microscopic network inside your mind known as the mirror neuron system. Mirror neurons are specialized cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that exact same action. They are the biological foundation of human empathy. When you listen to a powerful, beautifully delivered speech or a deeply resonant line of poetry, your mirror neurons are actively simulating the emotional state of the speaker. You are quite literally feeling the subtle, invisible weight of their emotion echoing inside your own nervous system. But not every spoken sentence causes a physical shiver. To trigger the heavy, rolling wave of frisson, the spoken word must possess a very specific, profound architecture. It must carry the absolute, undeniable weight of human truth. Think about the most powerful cinematic moments you have ever witnessed, or the rising, rhythmic cadence of a historic, world-changing speech. The trigger for the chill does not just come from the intellectual meaning of the vocabulary. It comes from the deliberate pacing, the heavy, intentional pauses, and the raw, unshielded vulnerability of the delivery. The speaker builds an emotional tension in the room, holding the attention of the audience in the palm of their hand. They allow the silence between the words to grow heavy and dense. When the final, perfectly crafted sentence is finally spoken, it acts as a sudden, massive, cognitive release. The words perfectly articulate a deeply complex emotion or a universal truth that you have always felt, but perhaps could never successfully put into words yourself. It is the sudden, overwhelming realization that you are fundamentally understood and that you are absolutely not alone in the human experience. When this profound cognitive alignment happens, the prefrontal cortex instantly recognizes the immense emotional value of the moment. It bypasses all logical filtration and sends that massive, heavy signal straight down into the limbic system. The mirror neurons are completely flooded with empathetic resonance. The dopamine is violently released, and the physical shiver runs rapidly across your shoulders and down your back. This specific type of frisson is an incredible, beautiful, biological validation of our shared humanity. It is your central nervous system physically vibrating in perfect harmony with the emotional truth of another human being. It strips away all the superficial, chaotic noise of the modern world and leaves you feeling deeply, securely connected to the heavy, quiet truth of the present moment. As you lie here in the stillness of your room, you can let go of the need to process the endless, empty conversations of the day. You can simply allow the quiet, resonant truth of your own peaceful environment to wrap around you, bringing a deep, physical heaviness to your limbs and preparing your mind for a long, uninterrupted rest. The architecture of grandeur. We have explored the invisible waves of sound and the resonant power of the spoken word. Now we must open our eyes and look outward. We must explore the profound, physical impact of visual scale. While music and speech move chronologically through time, visual awe hits the human nervous system all at once, in a single, overwhelming fraction of a second. To understand why standing at the edge of a massive canyon or looking up into a perfectly clear night sky can cause a violent, heavy shiver to run down your spine, we have to examine how your brain processes the physical dimensions of the world. Your visual system is the most heavily developed sensory network in your entire body. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, billions of photons are constantly crashing into your retinas. This light is instantly converted into electrical data and sent racing down your optic nerves directly to the visual cortex at the back of your brain. In your normal, daily life, your brain is incredibly efficient at mapping this data. It quickly calculates the size of the room you are in, the distance to the door, and the scale of the objects surrounding you. It builds a comfortable, predictable, and highly manageable geometric model of your reality. But occasionally, you step into an environment that completely shatters this comfortable geometry. Imagine standing at the very edge of a massive ancient mountain range, or walking into the center of a towering, centuries-old cathedral, or simply walking outside on a freezing, cloudless night and looking up at the dense, glowing arm of the Milky Way galaxy. In these rare moments, the sheer volume of visual information flooding into your optic nerve is absolutely staggering. Your brain's spatial prediction engine immediately tries to calculate the boundaries of the space, just as it always does. It tries to find the edges, measure the distance, and comprehend the sheer, massive scale of the landscape. But the architecture of grandeur is simply too vast. The mathematical calculations completely fail. The prefrontal cortex cannot successfully map the infinite depth of a starry sky or the terrifying, beautiful drop of a canyon. This cognitive failure is not a negative experience. It is the exact biological catalyst for profound awe. When the brain realizes it cannot contain the scale of the visual input, it completely surrenders. It stops trying to measure the world and simply allows the overwhelming beauty to exist exactly as it is. In that exact moment of cognitive surrender, a massive psychological shift occurs. You experience a sudden, undeniable realization of your own microscopic physical size in comparison to the vastness of the universe. In psychology, this is known as ego dissolution. The heavy, exhausting burden of your daily worries, your personal anxieties, and your individual identity suddenly feel incredibly small and entirely insignificant. You are relieved of the massive pressure of being the center of your own universe. You are safely, quietly swallowed up by the immense scale of the world. The limbic system recognizes this sudden release of psychological pressure as a moment of profound, absolute safety and deep connection to the natural world. The striatum is violently flooded with dopamine. The electrical signal arcs down your brainstem, and the heavy, rolling chill cascades across your shoulders and down your arms. The physical shiver is your body's way of anchoring you to the earth, while your mind expands to take in the infinite. There is an incredible, lasting peace that follows this visual frisson. It leaves you feeling deeply grounded and wonderfully insignificant in the best possible way. As you rest here tonight, safely enclosed in the quiet architecture of your own room, you do not need to process the vastness of the world. You can let the walls protect you, allowing the heavy, comforting gravity of the bed to hold you perfectly secure while your visual cortex powers down for a long, uninterrupted rest. The cognitive epiphany. So far, we have discussed the physical shiver as a reaction to external sensory input. We have looked at the vibrations of sound and the overwhelming scale of visual light. But the human nervous system is capable of producing this exact same violent chemical reaction without any external stimulus whatsoever. Sometimes the most powerful and profound wave of frisson is born entirely in the absolute, silent darkness of your own mind. This is the quiet, beautiful phenomenon of the cognitive epiphany. The human brain is not just a passive receiver of information, it is an active, relentless puzzle solver. Throughout your entire life, you are constantly absorbing fragments of data, complex ideas, philosophical concepts, and personal experiences. Your brain files all of these disconnected pieces of information deep inside your memory network. Often, these ideas sit quietly in the background, entirely separate from one another, waiting for the right moment to finally align. A cognitive epiphany occurs when your mind suddenly and without warning connects two previously unrelated concepts. It is the exact moment an incredibly complex idea finally makes perfect, crystal clear sense. It is the sudden realization of a profound, universal truth, or the quiet, internal unraveling of a mystery you have been subconsciously working on for years. This internal reaction often happens when you are reading a beautifully written book, or simply lying awake in the quiet hours of the night, allowing your thoughts to drift freely without the chaotic interruptions of the waking world. When the neurological connection is finally made, it is not a slow, gradual understanding. It happens in a fraction of a millisecond. Millions of neurons fire in perfect, synchronized harmony, bridging a massive gap across the hemispheres of your brain. The architecture of the idea snaps instantly into place. The puzzle is perfectly solved. Your prefrontal cortex recognizes the immense value of this new understanding. Evolution has specifically wired the human brain to highly reward the acquisition of new, vital knowledge. When you finally understand a deep truth, your brain views it as a massive leap forward in your biological survival and your psychological maturity. Because the internal realization is so profound, the brain bypasses all external sensory pathways and sends the signal of absolute victory straight down into the reward center. The striatum is heavily flooded with the exact same surge of dopamine that you would experience listening to a sweeping orchestral climax. The chemical weight of the realization translates instantly into a powerful electrical wave. The physical shiver runs rapidly down your spine, but this time it is not reacting to the outside world. It is reacting entirely to the sheer, undeniable beauty of your own internal architecture. The goosebumps on your skin are the physical, biological proof that your mind has just expanded its understanding of the universe. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated cognitive joy. Following this internal frisson, the brain experiences a massive wave of psychological relief. The cognitive tension of not understanding is completely gone. The chaotic fragments of thought have been perfectly organized into a stable, reliable structure. The mind feels incredibly clear, highly organized, and deeply, profoundly satisfied. This is the perfect biological state for sleep. When the puzzles are solved and the truths are recognized, the brain no longer needs to work. It can safely power down its analytical engines. As you lie perfectly still, allow the quiet satisfaction of the day to settle heavily into your physical frame. You have learned, you have understood, and you have experienced the profound beauty of your own mind. There are no more connections left to make tonight. You can simply surrender to the heavy, comforting darkness, knowing that your internal world is perfectly aligned and absolutely ready for deep, restorative rest. The contagion of the crowd. Throughout this journey, we have examined the phenomenon of frisson as a deeply solitary experience. We have looked at the quiet, internal geometry of your own mind, the private relationship between your ears and a piece of music, and the isolated feeling of standing alone before a massive, breathtaking landscape. But human beings are not, by our biological nature, solitary creatures. We are incredibly complex, highly social animals. For hundreds of thousands of years, our absolute physical survival depended entirely on our ability to integrate into a tribe. We had to understand the emotions of the group, move in perfect unison, and share the exact same psychological state as the people standing immediately next to us. Because of this ancient, deeply ingrained necessity, one of the most powerful triggers for the aesthetic chill does not come from a song or a painting. It comes from the sheer, overwhelming physical weight of collective human emotion. Imagine standing in the center of a massive arena or seamlessly blending into a crowd of thousands of people who have all gathered for a singular, shared purpose. Before the event even begins, there is a distinct, heavy hum of kinetic energy in the air. Your nervous system is already operating on a highly alert, baseline level of anticipation. You are surrounded by the body heat, the subtle movements, and the quiet murmurs of countless other human beings. In any other context, the primitive centers of your brain might interpret this massive concentration of people as a severe physical threat. But because you are all focused on the exact same beautiful objective, your prefrontal cortex signals to your amygdala that you are entirely, perfectly safe. You are safely embedded within the protective structure of the tribe. This feeling of absolute, collective safety primes your biology for a massive emotional release. Your brain begins to quietly secrete oxytocin, which is the powerful neurochemical responsible for human bonding, trust, and profound empathy. It softens the hard, defensive edges of your individual ego. Then the catalyst occurs. It might be the opening chord of a beloved song ringing out across the stadium, a sudden, miraculous athletic achievement on a distant field, or a quiet, heartbreaking moment of silence shared by 10,000 people all at once. In that exact fraction of a second, the entire crowd reacts as a single, massive biological organism. The gasp of the crowd, the sudden roar of approval, or the heavy, unified silence acts as a massive acoustic and emotional shockwave. Your auditory cortex registers the sound of the crowd, but your mirror neuron system does something far more profound. It instantly synchronizes your internal emotional state with the exact emotional state of the thousands of people surrounding you. You are no longer processing your own isolated feelings. You are biologically absorbing the joy, the awe, or the sorrow of an entire population. This phenomenon is known in psychology as limbic resonance. It is the capacity for human nervous systems to silently attune to one another. When the emotional weight of the crowd peaks, the sheer volume of that shared psychological energy is entirely uncontainable for a single human mind. The boundary between where you end and where the rest of humanity begins completely dissolves. Your striatum is violently flooded with an oceanic surge of dopamine. The oxytocin amplifies the emotional resonance, creating a chemical cocktail of absolute belonging and transcendent awe. The electrical signal fires rapidly down your brainstem, but this time, the physical shiver that washes across your shoulders and down your spine feels entirely different. It feels like a literal contagion of joy passing physically through the air. You can often see the ripple of goosebumps spreading across the arms of the people standing next to you. The chill is the biological proof that you are fundamentally, inescapably connected to the human family. It is a moment of profound psychological relief, proving that your individual burdens are incredibly small and that you are safely held within the massive, shared architecture of the human experience. As you lie resting tonight far away from the noise of the crowd, you can carry that heavy, comforting sense of belonging with you, knowing that your nervous system is perfectly designed to connect, to empathize, and to share the beautiful weight of the world. The echo of memory. The human brain is a magnificent, highly sophisticated biological vault. Every single day of your life, you are bombarded by an infinite stream of sensory information. To prevent your mind from becoming completely overwhelmed, your brain ruthlessly filters this data, discarding the vast majority of your daily experiences and holding on to only the most vital, emotionally significant moments. These precious fragments of time are carefully encoded into complex neurological pathways and stored deep inside the hippocampus. As the years pass, the sharp edges of these memories often begin to soften and blur. The conscious mind slowly loses its direct grip on the past, but the body never truly forgets. Sometimes a deeply buried memory can be violently and beautifully pulled back to the surface, triggering a massive wave of physical frisson known as the echo of nostalgia. To understand why a ghost from the past can cause a sudden electric chill to run down your spine in the present moment, we have to look at the physical anatomy of your sensory pathways. Most of the sensory information you experience, like the things you see and the textures you feel, must first pass through a biological relay station in the brain called the thalamus. The thalamus acts like a highly logical traffic controller, sorting the data and sending it to the conscious, analytical areas of your cortex for careful processing. But there is one specific sense that completely bypasses this logical filter. It is the ancient, highly primitive sense of smell. When you inhale a specific scent, the microscopic odor molecules travel up your nasal cavity and bind directly to the olfactory bulb. The olfactory bulb has a direct, entirely unfiltered anatomical connection to the amygdala, which processes raw emotion, and the hippocampus, which stores your deepest memories. This means that a scent does not have to be analyzed, translated, or logically understood by the modern human brain. It strikes the emotional centers of your mind with absolute, immediate biological force. Imagine walking down a quiet street, when you suddenly catch the incredibly specific scent of rain hitting hot, dry pavement. Or perhaps you open an old book and inhale the dry, heavy scent of decaying paper. Or you catch a fleeting trace of a very specific perfume that someone you once loved used to wear. In a fraction of a millisecond, that chemical signature violently unlocks a dormant neurological pathway. Because the logical filter of the thalamus has been completely bypassed, you do not simply remember the past event in a detached, analytical way. Your brain actively and aggressively hallucinates the exact emotional state you were in when that memory was first formed. Your nervous system completely collapses the immense distance of time. For a single, overwhelming second, the past and the present occupy the exact same physical space inside your mind. You are instantly flooded with the precise chemical cocktail of joy, longing, or profound, beautiful melancholy that you felt a decade ago. This sudden, massive emotional time travel is incredibly shocking to the central nervous system. The prefrontal cortex is completely taken by surprise. The sudden rush of returning emotion floods the striatum with a heavy, highly concentrated pulse of dopamine. It is the biological reward of retrieving a lost piece of your own identity. The electrical signal arcs down the spinal cord, and the heavy, rolling shiver cascades across your skin. The goosebumps you feel are the physical manifestation of a memory temporarily coming back to life. This intense wave of nostalgia is a deeply comforting biological mechanism. It proves that the beautiful, significant moments of your life are never truly lost to the passing of time. They are safely, permanently etched into the incredibly resilient architecture of your own brain, waiting quietly in the dark for the right sensory key to unlock them. When the shiver finally passes and the memory gently recedes back into the depths of the hippocampus, it leaves behind a profoundly heavy, deeply settled peace. The nervous system has briefly tasted the past and is now perfectly content to return to the quiet safety of the present. As you sink deeper into your mattress tonight, there is no need to actively search your memory or hold on to the events of your history. You can simply allow your mind to let go, trusting completely in the brilliant, loyal filing system of your own biology. Your history is perfectly safe, your present environment is entirely secure, and your body is beautifully prepared to drift downward into a long, uninterrupted, and deeply restorative sleep. The resonance of courage. We have explored the physical chills brought on by massive landscapes, soaring melodies, and the sudden realization of complex truths. But there is another, deeply profound trigger for the aesthetic shiver that is entirely rooted in the moral architecture of the human mind. It is a biological phenomenon known in psychology as elevation. This is the intense physical sensation you experience when you witness an act of incredible human courage, selfless sacrifice, or overwhelming, unexpected kindness. To understand why observing the bravery of another person can send a violent, heavy wave of electricity down your own spine, we must look at how evolution has wired us to fiercely protect the social fabric of our species. In the brutal environment of the ancient world, human beings could not survive entirely on their own. We were not the fastest creatures, we did not possess heavy armor, and we did not have sharp claws. Our absolute greatest evolutionary advantage was our ability to cooperate, to protect one another, and to prioritize the survival of the group over the survival of the individual. Because this cooperation was so fundamentally necessary for the continuation of our species, the human brain developed a highly specialized, deeply ingrained reward system designed to recognize and celebrate acts of moral beauty. When you watch a film where a character willingly steps into profound danger to save someone else, or when you hear a true story about a stranger giving up everything they have for the benefit of another, your brain does not simply process this as abstract information. Your mirror neuron system, which we discussed earlier, immediately begins to simulate the emotional weight of that sacrifice inside your own nervous system. You mentally step into the shoes of the hero, but it goes much deeper than simple empathy. When your prefrontal cortex recognizes that you are witnessing an act of pure, selfless courage, it sends a powerful, descending signal directly into your autonomic nervous system. It activates a massive, complex bundle of fibers known as the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve wanders all the way from your brainstem, down through your neck, and directly into your chest, wrapping its intricate branches tightly around your heart and your lungs. When this nerve is suddenly stimulated by the recognition of moral beauty, it creates a very specific, undeniable physical sensation. You feel a sudden, warm expansion in the absolute center of your chest. It feels as though your physical heart is literally swelling against your ribcage. Your throat might tighten and your breathing briefly becomes shallow as your body prepares for a massive emotional release. Your brain understands that the act of courage you are witnessing is the highest possible expression of human cooperation. To reward you for recognizing this vital social behavior, the limbic system violently floods your striatum with a heavy, overwhelming surge of dopamine and oxytocin. Because the emotional weight of this moral elevation is so massive, the brain cannot contain it purely as a thought or a feeling. The energy violently spills over, converting the chemical rush into an electrical discharge. The signal arcs down the spinal cord, and the heavy, undeniable shiver of Frisson cascades rapidly across your shoulders and down your back. The goosebumps on your skin are the ultimate biological proof that you are fundamentally wired to value goodness, bravery, and self-sacrifice. There is an immense, heavy peace that follows this empathetic shiver. It leaves you feeling deeply inspired, thoroughly cleansed of cynicism, and profoundly connected to the inherent goodness of humanity. It strips away the selfish anxieties of your daily life and replaces them with a heavy, comforting sense of moral clarity. As you rest quietly in the dark tonight, you do not have to be brave. You do not have to face the dangers of the world. You can simply allow the quiet comfort of your own inherent empathy to wash over you, knowing that your nervous system is perfectly designed to recognize the light in others and that you are safely embedded within a deeply resilient, beautifully cooperative human family. The paradox of beautiful sadness. One of the most fascinating mysteries of human behavior is our deep, seemingly illogical attraction to melancholy. We deliberately seek out heartbreakingly sad songs. We read tragedies that we know will bring us to tears, and we watch films that carry a profound, heavy weight of sorrow. Logically, the human brain is designed to aggressively avoid pain and seek out pleasure. So why does the nervous system react to beautifully tragic art with a massive, highly pleasurable physical shiver? To understand the paradox of beautiful sadness, we have to explore a quiet, deeply comforting chemical mechanism designed to protect the human mind from genuine trauma. When you listen to a deeply melancholic piece of music, or when you become emotionally invested in a tragic story, your brain temporarily suspends its understanding of reality. The emotional centers of your mind, particularly the amygdala, begin to process the sorrow of the music or the story as if it were actually happening to you. Your brain recognizes the acoustic patterns of grief, the slow, weeping tempo of a minor key, or the lyrical description of a profound loss. It assumes that you are experiencing genuine emotional pain. Whenever the human body is subjected to severe physical or emotional trauma, the brain deploys a heavy biological defense mechanism to keep you from going into shock. The pituitary gland immediately begins to synthesize and release a powerful hormone called prolactin. Prolactin is a fascinating, highly specialized molecule. In other biological contexts, it is the hormone responsible for nursing and maternal care. But in the context of grief and sorrow, prolactin acts as a profound, internal biological blanket. It circulates heavily through your bloodstream and enters your brain, producing a deeply tranquilizing, highly comforting, and intensely soothing psychological effect. It is the chemical reason why a long, heavy session of crying often leaves you feeling deeply exhausted, physically relaxed, and profoundly calm. The body is actively chemically comforting itself. But here is where the magnificent paradox of melancholic art occurs. As the sad song plays and the amygdala triggers the release of this heavy, comforting prolactin, your highly evolved prefrontal cortex is simultaneously analyzing the situation. In a fraction of a second, the logical center of your brain realizes that you are not actually in danger. You have not actually suffered a real-world loss. You are simply sitting safely in a chair or lying warmly in your bed, listening to a beautiful arrangement of sound waves. Your brain immediately recognizes the absolute safety of your environment. It cancels the distress signal, but it does not cancel the chemical comfort. Because the prolactin has already been released into your bloodstream, you get to experience the profound, heavy, soothing effects of the hormone without having to endure any of the actual, real-world trauma that usually accompanies it. You are wrapped in a thick, biological blanket of comfort, entirely free of genuine pain. When the prefrontal cortex recognizes this incredibly safe, beautifully comforting state, it highly rewards the experience. It views this safe simulation of sorrow as a vital emotional exercise, a way for the nervous system to safely practice feeling deep emotion without genuine risk. The striatum is suddenly flooded with dopamine. The chemical combination of the heavy, soothing prolactin mixing directly with the sharp, electric joy of the dopamine creates a massive neurological overload. The electrical signal is fired down the spine, and the violent, beautiful shiver of Frisson washes across your skin. The chill you feel during a sad song is not the physical manifestation of sorrow, it is the physical manifestation of ultimate biological comfort. It is your brain rewarding you for safely exploring the absolute deepest depths of human emotion. When the song ends and the shiver fades, the heavy, tranquilizing effects of the prolactin remain in your system for quite some time. This leaves your physical body feeling incredibly soft, entirely drained of anxious tension, and perfectly prepared for sleep. As you lie here tonight, surrounded by the absolute safety of your own room, you can let go of the need to guard your emotions. You can sink heavily into the mattress, knowing that your brain is equipped with a magnificent chemical pharmacy designed exclusively to comfort you, protect you, and guide you safely downward into the quiet, darkness of rest. The peak autonomic spike. We have spent our time together exploring the many different pathways that lead to this magnificent biological event. We have traced the ancient survival instincts of our ancestors, the predictive mathematics of the auditory cortex, the overwhelming visual scale of the natural world, and the profound empathetic resonance of the human heart. But regardless of whether the trigger is a sweeping orchestral melody, a stunning view of the night sky, or a deeply moving act of courage, the final destination inside your nervous system is exactly the same. All of these pathways converge into a single, overwhelming fraction of a second. This is the biological climax of the aesthetic chill. This is the peak autonomic spike. To understand the sheer magnitude of this moment, you have to visualize the autonomic nervous system as a finely tuned, highly sensitive instrument. Throughout your normal day, this system operates on a very narrow, predictable bandwidth. It gently raises your heart rate when you stand up, it subtly adjusts your breathing when you speak, and it regulates your body temperature without you ever consciously noticing. It is designed to maintain a quiet, unbothered state of biological equilibrium. But when the perfect combination of sensory input and emotional resonance finally aligns, this equilibrium is intentionally and violently shattered. As the musical tension reaches its absolute peak, or as the profound cognitive epiphany fully snaps into focus, your prefrontal cortex throws a massive biological switch. It completely removes the regulatory brakes from your nervous system. In a microsecond, the sympathetic branch of your autonomic system is pushed to its absolute maximum capacity. This is not a slow, gradual increase in arousal. It is an instantaneous, vertical spike of pure neurological energy. Deep inside the emotional center of your brain, the striatum is hit with an oceanic flood of dopamine. The receptors are entirely saturated, processing an amount of chemical pleasure that is completely disproportionate to the safety of your actual environment. This massive chemical payload requires an immediate physical outlet. The brain converts the chemical joy into a massive electrical discharge, sending a shock wave of voltage straight down the thick column of your spinal cord. You can track the exact physical progression of this electrical wave as it moves through your body. The sensation almost always begins at the very base of your neck, right where the brainstem meets the cervical spine. From there, the energy splits and branches violently outward. It cascades heavily across the broad muscles of your shoulders, traveling rapidly down the length of your arms and settling into your wrists. At the exact same time, a second wave of electricity rolls down the center of your back, radiating outward across your ribs and down into your lower spine. As this electrical current hits the peripheral nerves, millions of microscopic erector pili muscles simultaneously and violently contract. The hair follicles on your skin are pulled sharply upright. You experience a sudden, involuntary respiratory gasp as your diaphragm briefly locks into place, pulling a sharp intake of oxygen into your lungs. Your pupils dilate dramatically, even if your eyes are closed, as the nervous system attempts to take in as much of the beautiful stimulus as biologically possible. For the 1 or 2 seconds that this peak autonomic spike lasts, your conscious perception of time completely stops. The chaotic, endless stream of your daily thoughts is entirely wiped out by the sheer, deafening volume of the physical sensation. You cannot worry about tomorrow, and you cannot dwell on the past. Your entire consciousness is violently anchored to the present moment, pinned down by the heavy, undeniable weight of your own biology reacting to the profound beauty of the world. It is the highest state of emotional and physical saturation the human body can achieve without moving a single muscle. You are physically vibrating with the resonant energy of the experience. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated awe, translated perfectly into the physical architecture of your skin and your spine. As you rest quietly in the dark, you can deeply appreciate the incredible capacity of your nervous system to feel so much, knowing that your body is not just a mechanical vessel, but a highly tuned instrument designed to physically resonate with the beauty of the universe. The parasympathetic wave. The peak autonomic spike is an incredibly powerful, deeply beautiful biological event, but the human body is governed by the strict laws of physics and physiology. A state of absolute maximum neurological saturation requires a massive amount of cellular energy to sustain. Your sympathetic nervous system simply cannot hold that vertical spike of electricity forever. It is a fleeting, temporary reaction designed to burn intensely bright and then rapidly burn out. What follows this intense physical shiver is perhaps the most important and undoubtedly the most comforting phase of the entire phenomenon. This is the arrival of the parasympathetic wave. As the sudden rush of dopamine begins to clear from your striatum and the electrical shockwave dissipates into the outer edges of your peripheral nerves, your brain immediately recognizes the massive expenditure of energy. It knows that the emotional climax has passed, the tension has been beautifully resolved, and the profound aesthetic truth has been successfully recognized. The biological emergency of awe is officially over. In response, the brain initiates a massive systemic deceleration. It aggressively engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the heavy biological brake pedal we discussed in our previous journeys. The first thing you feel as the chill begins to fade is the sudden, dramatic release of physical tension. When the shiver traveled down your spine, it forced thousands of microscopic muscles, along with the larger muscles in your neck and shoulders, to briefly and tightly contract. Now, the brain stops sending the command to hold that tension. The erector pili muscles release their grip, and the hair follicles on your arms and back slowly lay flat against the skin once again. The large muscles surrounding your spine completely give up their resistance, collapsing heavily against the structure of your bones. At the exact same time, your brainstem sends a powerful signal down the thick, wandering path of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve releases a slow, steady wash of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine directly into your heart muscle. Acetylcholine is the chemical opposite of adrenaline. It acts as a profound biological tranquilizer. It forces the rapid, pounding rhythm of your heartbeat to instantly slow down, settling into a deep, rhythmic, and incredibly heavy cadence. As your heart rate drops, your breathing naturally follows. The sudden, involuntary gasp of the shiver is replaced by slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths. You begin to pull oxygen low into your stomach, gently expanding your ribs and softly massaging your internal organs with every single exhalation. This rapid transition from a state of maximum neurological arousal to a state of profound biological deceleration creates a massive contrast in your physical body. It is the exact sensation of dropping a heavy weight that you have been carrying for a very long time. Because your nervous system was just pushed to its absolute limit, the subsequent relaxation is forced to be equally deep and equally profound. The blood vessels in your extremities, which slightly constricted during the peak of the shiver, now fully dilate. A wave of heavy, comforting warmth flows smoothly back into your hands, your feet, and the surface of your skin. This rushing warmth completely washes away any lingering static electricity left behind by the frisson. Your mind, which was entirely consumed by the overwhelming aesthetic experience just moments ago, is now incredibly quiet. The massive dopamine surge effectively cleared out all the anxious, chaotic noise of your normal thoughts, and the new influx of acetylcholine keeps that noise from immediately returning. You are left in a state of perfectly balanced, quiet emptiness. This parasympathetic wave is the ultimate biological reward. It is the deep, physical comfort that proves you have safely survived an overwhelming emotional experience. It leaves your limbs feeling pleasantly heavy, your chest feeling entirely open, and your mind feeling beautifully still. As you sink into the mattress, you can actively feel this parasympathetic brake applying its heavy pressure to your nervous system. You do not need to fight it, and you do not need to hold on to any tension. You can simply allow the wave of relaxation to pull you smoothly and inevitably downward. The heavy descent. We have reached the end of our journey through the complex, beautiful architecture of the aesthetic chill. We have traveled from the freezing environments of our ancient ancestors straight through the intricate mathematics of the auditory cortex and deep into the hidden chemical pharmacies of the human brain. We have witnessed the violent electrical spike of profound awe, and we have felt the heavy, comforting wave of the parasympathetic brake. Now, there is only one biological imperative left for your body to fulfill. You have experienced the echo of the chill, and now you must begin the heavy descent into the healing sanctuary of sleep. The physical phenomenon of frisson is an incredibly beautiful thing, but it is ultimately a massive expenditure of your internal resources. Your brain has spent a great deal of chemical energy synthesizing the dopamine, the oxytocin, and the prolactin required to make you feel such a profound sense of connection to the world. Your peripheral nervous system has burned electrical energy to forcefully contract the muscles across your skin. The entire biological event was a beautiful, necessary stress, but it was a stress nonetheless. Now, the bill for that energy must be paid, and the human body only accepts one form of payment. It requires absolute, uninterrupted unconsciousness. As you lie here, in the dark, the environment around you is perfectly designed to facilitate this deep recovery. The room is quiet, the air is cool, and the heavy blankets provide a constant, comforting pressure against your skin. This physical pressure acts as a continuous, gentle signal to your autonomic nervous system, reassuring your brain that you are completely safe, perfectly hidden, and entirely secure. Deep inside your skull, the electrical activity of your brain is beginning to fundamentally change. The fast, highly active beta waves that you use to process the waking world have completely faded away. They were replaced by the slower, relaxed alpha waves when you first closed your eyes, but now, as the heavy exhaustion of the day finally settles into your physical frame, your brain is shifting into an even deeper, slower rhythm. It is generating the rolling, hypnotic theta waves that mark the very boundary between wakefulness and sleep. You can feel this shift physically. The muscles in your face, particularly the tiny, delicate muscles surrounding your eyes and your jaw, have completely let go of their underlying tension. Your head rests heavily against the pillow, allowing the soft fabric to entirely support the weight of your skull. Your shoulders have dropped away from your ears, and your spine is perfectly aligned, sinking deeply into the supportive structure of the mattress. There is absolutely nothing left for your conscious mind to analyze, predict, or understand tonight. The music has faded into silence, the breathtaking landscapes are safely hidden in the dark, and the profound emotional truths have all been perfectly processed and filed away. Your prediction engine is completely powered down. You do not need to anticipate the next moment, because the next moment holds nothing but the quiet, undeniable safety of rest. If you feel a random sudden twitch in your leg or your arm, do not be alarmed. This is simply a hypnic jerk, a tiny, harmless electrical misfire that occurs as your nervous system finally completely relinquishes its conscious control over your physical muscles. It is the ultimate biological proof that you are successfully crossing the threshold into sleep. Allow your breathing to become even slower and even more shallow. Trust in the brilliant, ancient, and deeply loyal architecture of your own biology. Your body knows exactly how to heal itself, exactly how to restore its chemical balance, and exactly how to prepare you for whatever the next day will bring. Release the final, lingering thoughts of the waking world. Let the profound, beautiful weight of your own physical frame pull you safely downward. The journey is complete. The chill has passed. You can simply let go, surrendering completely to the heavy, peaceful, and entirely restorative darkness of deep sleep.